Far too often, LGBTQ plus business owners believe they have to choose between authenticity and being successful. Through these real-life stories, LGBTQ plus listeners aspiring for success can gain valuable insights to navigate their path to being both queer and successful. Hello, everyone. It is me, Hunter J. McNair, your hostess with the mostest, back again for this week's episode of Queer and Successful. Now, this week we were joined by my good Judy, my good pal, David McEachern, as we talked about business-to-business referrals. David actually works with Keller Williams, which is the corporation that I hang my license with as a real estate agent, and he lives in Atlanta, Georgia. Now, Atlanta is a highly competitive business referral hub in the world of real estate. And so David's insight into how his team has actually produced over $25 million worth of volume just from agent referrals last year is truly valuable. So I hope you enjoy this week's episode. As always, you can join these calls live and participate in the Q&A with them at successfulcall.com. I hope you'll enjoy this week's episode. So welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining this week's Successful Call. I have my good Judy, my good pal, David McEachern, in our call today talking about agent referrals and converting at a high level. And David, what's really cool about you and I is we both go around and train on various topics. And you specifically, we were talking about this before we started the call, but we were talking about how you've actually been traveling around and teaching on getting referrals in your business this last year. So why don't you just introduce yourself, tell us a little bit more about your business, and we'll go from there.
Okay. My name is David McEachern. I am with Keller Williams Chattahoochee North in properly is Peachtree Corners, Georgia, which is really a suburb of Atlanta, in the metro Atlanta area. Yesterday was actually my 19th anniversary with Keller Williams. I haven't turned into a raging alcoholic with real estate, so that's always a good sign. But sorry, improper. But I just survived through 2008, so let's put it that way. Not the most fun time whatsoever. But I've always been with Chattahoochee North. I run McEachern Real Estate Group. And we are a little bit unusual in that we do both residential and commercial business. I'm the commercial director for our market center, and I'm also the commercial business coach for our group of offices. We have 9 offices in Alabama, Georgia, and South Carolina. And hopefully, we'll see if expansion continues from that. I've been on ALC for 19 consecutive years. I have not taken any time off, and also regional ALC member. So
you've been doing the Agent Leadership Council for 19 years.
Yeah.
I did it like a year and I was like, I'm done.
Yeah. It's almost gotten to where I've always done like the productivity career development chair for that. And it's just gotten to where it's so much part of my system now to do it that I've just kept on going with it. I enjoy it. We have about 300 agents in our office right now, and I'm probably at this point after 19 years, I am probably number 7 in seniority, past some of the investors. And I actually live 20 miles from my market center because I live in Midtown Atlanta, if you guys know where Midtown is. And or at least you'll see it next year when you all come to Atlanta. And I actually passed 3 other Keller Williams offices because of the people that are in this market center. And I can clearly say I have not spent 30 seconds in those 19 years thinking, should I be at another market center or should I be at another company? I was just very fortunate to walk into the right center at the right time.
Yeah, and there are a lot of offices in Atlanta and that area, so you definitely got a good one.
It's ridiculous. Our market, we have, to give you a concept, we have 26 offices in the metro Atlanta area. So,
That is wild. That is wild.
yeah.
So you've been doing this for 19 years. And at what point did you say, like, I want referrals, specifically agent referrals, right, to make up 50% of my business? Like, when were you like, all right, this is going to be a key foundation of what we do?
Sure. Well, how it happened was as what happens with most of us, we just sort of fall into it backwards and not realize it's happening until it's already occurred. I was actually at Mega Camp one year and I was in a coffee line, in the kiosk. And there is a gentleman who's part of the Rainbow Group that Akin, I always screw up his name. He's out
Mhm.
of Baton Rouge, and he and I just sort of happened to be talking. It was total coincidence. And in that conversation, he actually told me about the Rainbow Network. I'd never heard of it before. And the Facebook group. He said, "Oh yeah, you should join it, and all that kind of stuff." So I did. And that just sort of opened up the door from that to all the other groups that were there. I learned, how to be, to pardon the pun, more bold, trying to get referrals and things of that sort, which is part of what I teach, in the class that I do. And it just really grew from there and became more and more and more and more part of my business. What was interesting is I run a very, I guess, broad sense business in terms of demographically. And I was really surprised one year, especially with the Rainbow Network, 47% of our business was LGBT oriented. It was either
Mm.
an LGBT client or a referral or something of that sort. And I just thought that was a really cool part of it. And then it kept growing to where last year, 53% of our business, closed business, was agent to agent referral. And today, no one getting on this call, right now, 73% of our my pipeline, I don't know about my teammates' pipeline, but my pipeline is agent to agent referrals, coming in.
Wow. Well, and you
So,
mentioned something too. When we are working with LGBTQ plus people to get referrals, we usually get that type of clientele as well, right? And what's kind of nice is that we get to get clientele that knows that appreciate what we do and appreciates that we really care about our community at a high level. And you're actually from Atlanta too, right?
yes, yeah,
Born and
actual
raised?
native, born
Oh,
and raised.
wow.
Yeah, there's like 10 of us. We meet at different Waffle Houses. There just aren't that many in the Atlanta area to begin with. And what's ironic is I actually live now less than 2 miles from where I was born. And I'm at the office today, and I'm maybe 7 miles from where I really grew up. And it isn't that, well, I sort of joke with myself, am I smart doing that, or have I just been lazy not moving somewhere else? From my career, I just haven't had a compelling reason to move to another city. And
Mm,
Atlanta is financially and business growth wise and demographically just a very strong market. And so, and my parents were able to build a really good career here with their business, and I've been able to do the same thing. So I've just always been here, except for 4 years of being away at college,
yeah.
doing that.
And I'm sure you use having that type of expertise, right, to build trust with
Oh
people.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, someone comes through town. Like I've got some clients coming in from their son. I live right next to Georgia Tech. And so we have every so often we'll have people who will buy a condo for their son or daughter or something of that nature. And I've got some people coming in from Huntsville, Alabama. And I jokingly told them, I said, okay, if I start sounding like a Chamber of Commerce tour, around about Atlanta, just stop me because I'll just start telling you all this inane information about the city because I've just been here for so long with that. And there's a lot of great stories to tell. Is Atlanta a perfect town? Absolutely not. But I try to, I think what an advantage is that you can pretty much ask me about any area of Metro Atlanta, and I can easily tell you great area, demographically how it is, things of that nature pretty quickly. And having gone through the '08 through 11 cycle that we did, that I leaned into because where some people will hyper local market a certain area, and let's say a 5 square mile area, I
Mhm.
had to lean into only having been in real estate 2 years at that time, going wherever I needed to for a deal. And what ended up occurring out of that is that it made me more open with referrals because I could go pretty much anywhere. Our commercial business is much more broad spread than what residential is. We actually service all of Georgia on our commercial side,
Mm-hmm.
and
I know.
it just makes us it made us more flexible and such. And then living in Midtown is sort of like living in the middle of the bullseye of Metro Atlanta. So I can literally shoot out to whatever direction. Last year we did stuff 50 miles north of Metro Atlanta, north of Atlanta, and then we had our last deal, or second to last deal of the year, was 45 miles south of Atlanta, and it didn't faze me.
Well, what's interesting about what you just said, though, right, is like you were obviously you're from there. You're a local expert, and then you start making these connections with people outside of your local area, but you know a little bit about areas because you're from there. And what kind of happens as you make connections with people outside of where you live is your business grew to where now you're
Mhm.
actually selling commercial real estate across the entire state. So you kind of start small and then you build out from that.
It's two things that occurred. Number one is not having being intelligent about how you're doing it, I guess, but not having a fear factor.
Mm.
Is I sort of where going into commercial, it was, hey, could you help me buy this office building in Tucker? It was a foreclosure, it was not, it was a very simplistic deal to do. And at the same time, I was approached by somebody who was doing commercial leases for companies such as Edward Jones, H&R Block, Fast Power, Fast Signs, excuse me, Manpower. And I just sort of landed in it. And our market there didn't have anyone else in commercial. And I said, I'm willing to do it. I'll totally commit to KW commercial, but I'm not giving up residential.
Mm.
And it just sort of grew from there organically. And I think that taking a skill set of in residential, you talk a bit softer to clients and you have a little bit more emotion in it. In commercial, they can be much more black and white and I don't want to say harsh, but just sharper edged, I
It's
guess.
the money. Yeah, it's to the
Yeah, and I'm able for some weird reason my head rotates between the two very easily because I'm a very high D Germanic personality. I'm half true German, to
I'm
where
Irish if you
I
can't tell.
yeah, I know how to bounce between the two at the appropriate time.
Yeah.
And when, especially in the referral business on our commercial side, I've been able to relate a lot to those residential agents and bring them in. Also, what has occurred is on that side, I've, it'd be very easy for those people to say, wait a minute, are you going to steal my my residential
Mm.
client? There is a steel wall there that in 13 years of doing it this way, I have never gone back and worked with a residential client of somebody else's actually at all. They've always worked with them. They've always done commercial with me. And my rule is, and I tell everyone is, if you ask me about residential, I'm shipping you back over to the original referring agent because I would
Mm.
never want that reputation of poaching somebody for residential. Could I do it? Absolutely. But you know as well as I do, one of your biggest assets in real estate is your reputation. I wouldn't dare, damage that.
Yeah, and that's really any business. And so I want to talk about like your class and some of the things that you teach when you're teaching people how to get referrals, right? Like tell me about it. Like what's the first thing that you tell people is a lesson in that?
The biggest thing that we could jump into first is actually the biggest meat of the whole thing is how do you start getting them? Where do
Mm.
you go? Because it isn't, some people think, oh, it's just going on Facebook. Yes, going on Facebook's part of it. But how do you do it? It's like one thing I'm not a big fan of, and it happens in every city, is that there's fan sharing. It's
Mhm.
just part of the game of what it is. But what I've done is I've gotten to know through networking. I call it the technology section and then the networking section. But in the technology section, I've gotten to know people such as yourself, Mike Zenicola, Mark Benson, Chad Bullock, such as that are in different cities. And I've sent you screenshots saying, "Hey, you're up." I,
Yep.
I do that with all these different people. A great example where it paid off for me was one day Chad Bullock, when he was full time living up in Minneapolis, he said, "Hey, this guy's looking for help in Atlanta. He needs a luxury agent and commercial." Ended up calling him. It was a fellow out of Boulder, not Colorado Springs, Colorado. Wasn't even calling for himself. He was calling for another agent in the office. ended up being a 15,000 square foot warehouse. I sold a luxury home on Lake Lanier north of Atlanta, sort of like Lake Norman, and then another house there. The family would sold their business and were moving back to Colorado Springs, and it was her parents and brother. And so I built this network of people who we all sort of watch out for each other. In fact,
Right.
at I think at 8:30 this morning, I sent one to Mike Zinicola that they were asking for somebody in Cleveland. And so that was a big part of it. But it's going through there. I have a list of over 100 different Facebook website groups you can join. I give that out at class. Also, and you just got to bounce in there. And you have to look at it sort of like if you were playing baseball. If you were, um, uh, yes,
Chad,
Chad, you're
where's my
you're
finder's
not
fee?
gonna get it. You're outside the statute of limitations. Um, that um, that if you were playing baseball and you hit 250 a year and you played for the Braves, you may be making $6 million a year. But it's only hitting 250. You just got to realize you're going to get those big hits, but it's not going to be every single one. And so that's how I mentally roll through it. You just
Mm.
keep going. Keep going through that. So
Well, it's
that's that.
interesting. Yeah. No,
No, go ahead. I'm sorry.
no, I mean, no, it's interesting because like what I guess I've talked about this briefly before, but the reason that like, you know, I started leading a lot with the Rainbow Network and now we're doing Queer and Successful is because of the business relationship conversations that I was having back in 2017, and just being really intentional about every day making conversation. And really, I think what you're alluding to is it's kind of snowballed. It's kind of a snowball effect when you become intentional about it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of times I always use the comparative. Think of building a stone wall, and you just put another rock on the wall to build a stronger wall. I can remember, in terms of networking and agent referrals, I can remember the first couple of family reunions I went to, and I was going
Mhm.
like, "What the devil am I doing here?" There's all these people, and you have to remember, as opposed to you, I'm very much a social introvert. I'm not someone who goes bounding into a
Are you
cocktail
saying that
party
I'm an extrovert? I don't understand.
just a small bit. If you could let me
Me?
borrow some of it, it'd probably do me some good.
Yeah.
But I'm somebody who could teach a class of 500. It doesn't phase me at all. Stick me in a cocktail party where I don't know anyone. I don't really want, I get freaked out. It's not that I don't want to be there. I feel uncomfortable. Anyhow, but when I went to a family reunion at first, it was like, what am I doing here? And I had to really sort of push myself to get to know people. Now, when I go, I rarely go 30 to 40 minutes in the hallways or in a meeting room or something of that sort, and I don't see somebody I know, that I'm shaking hands or giving a hug to or something of that sort. And then every single evening between Rainbow Network and, Jack Smith having a party or a networking thing or our office, our office is we have our attorneys and lenders, they come and do cocktail parties for us down there.
Mhm.
So there's always networking to occur with that to where I'm pretty much exhausted by the time, you get through family reunion and you come back and you detox and, and take care of self-care for a couple of days. But it's a great environment to be able to do that. We're very fortunate at KW to have that opportunity to do that.
Well, and I think you're still really intentional. And I think that's something that as an extrovert, I tend to I don't want to say throw spaghetti at the wall. But I actually really love a space where I know no one, because I want to get to know everyone. And we talked about before, actually, the call with Julia, we talked about the strength of an introvert and being able to be a little bit more methodical because they don't have a desire to be there, right?
Right,
You
right.
just have you're looking for a job there's a something you're looking to accomplish in the conversations. How do you scale this? Like if someone is like, hey, I need to start networking, whether it be local or outside of your local market, how do you tell people to start doing it just instantly?
Oh, I can just tell you perfectly. So first off, is
Okay.
finding groups such as the Rainbow Network or CHISPA or something. I think that's one of the most wonderful things about the affinity groups is that it gets it like I love my market center. They are great people here, but they're also, and I don't think they would argue with me a whole lot. For many years, they were very insular. It was like you have the world of Chattahoochee North, and that's all that exists in KW. And I was the one that sort of was like the black sheep, and I would blast myself out going to, because our market centers, we used to joke we were codependent. It's like, okay, when you're finished with everything, let's meet for drinks at 7 and then have dinner and never network. And I just slowly started leading out to that. But when you're going to, let's say, mega camp or family reunion, just start one step at a time. Don't overdo it. You're going to overwhelm yourself so bad you'll never do it again.
Right.
But like, join one of those groups, go to it, then and you'll get to know somebody and such as that. And I can remember going to New Orleans the last time we were there. I went to 3 other things that were outside, the regular thing, the networking. And but the bigger thing is when you get back, oh no, it's at home. I have literally the old school business card, holders.
Rolodex.
Yeah, the Rolodex, not
Yeah.
Rolodex, but like a notebook. And
Okay.
I will literally put everyone's business cards in there and then write notes afterwards. And what I've started doing is also I've started compiling a database where I've got about, now I sent out a newsletter today. I think we sent it out to 5,700 people
Mm.
to doing that. And I learned that from Mike Mendoza, who is out of Arizona. And I don't get a whole lot coming back at me, but it's very much, I'll talk some about Atlanta, I'll talk about the market, mention a listing, always give a dinner recommendation, because Atlanta is turned into a really big foodie town. But the biggest thing is I want people, when they think of Atlanta, hopefully they'll think of me.
Mm.
And if I'm consistent, which is a big word in my vocabulary, is being consistent time after time after time, hopefully that will work itself, to be able to do it. But you just got to, I think intentional is a great word, especially for me. It's like, I got at this point because I got to get that newsletter done. I've got so and so many I need to add into my database. I hired on a commercial section, they've actually got a very easy roster to work with. I hired somebody at $10 an hour to load all of that into a database, because you couldn't CSV file it or anything of that nature,
So,
to do that.
and not to interrupt you, I want to kind of make sure that I'm hearing everything you're saying, because I think you're saying a lot of amazing tidbits, and I want to make sure like I'm grabbing onto them deeper, right? Because you've already mentioned things that you're doing that other people are not doing. First of all, you have a database, right? Some people are
Yeah,
not
that's a
utilizing.
first step.
Yeah, people are not utilizing a database at a high level, right? They're not being intentional about taking those names, putting them into a system. You mentioned newsletter, right? You
Hmm.
mentioned we have a newsletter. I'm assuming that's monthly.
Yes, it is.
And then that's going to be Atlanta specific or market specific, correct?
It's very Atlanta specific, and it's Atlanta specific. And this particular newsletter that went out today is very realtor specific.
Mm,
I want you to,
hyper
I want,
targeting.
what I want to have come across is, hey, Atlanta is a dynamic place to be. Atlanta has a dynamic real estate community. We know what the market is. We're involved in the market. If you have somebody coming here, like Raleigh Durham is growing a great deal. Atlanta, Atlanta last year, we added 1.4% to our population. That's the equivalent of 70,000 people coming into Metro Atlanta. That's a lot of people. And so they got to be coming from somewhere, and they're coming from all different parts of the country. So the more I can, for lack of a better word, buckshot it, to where everyone can know, and we're adding every month to it. I'm going to do that. And especially in the Southeast, with having gone to up to Charlotte, Columbia, Charleston, Tampa, such as that, these are areas that have a tendency more to come into the Atlanta market. They'll get to know me. And I've met some really great people, through
Well, and
this.
I think you're touching on something that I think I want to emphasize, which is like, especially with, I mean, agent referrals we're used to because we're in real estate, but I think when we're talking about referrals outside of where you live, people don't understand that the quantity of conversations you have to have are much higher, right? Because
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
not like, someone in Tucson might not necessarily know someone in Raleigh, but it's not always about the connection with one person as much as it is about thinking of it as expanding your sphere to different parts of the country where someone in a different city might know someone else in their city who knows someone looking to move to Raleigh.
Oh
And so
yeah.
it's hard though because you have to be able to grasp that concept. and really quantify it at a higher level and have a little bit of faith that it's going to work out, right? Because like,
It comes back to that consistency thing. You've got to, you just have to do it every single month and such as that. And to be honest with you, with family reunion coming to Atlanta, when I
I
think we
see you
still
eating that
even
up, by the way. I see you
yeah, yeah.
like, posting
Yeah.
and
Hey,
eating
we
that up
haven't had it in
already.
16 years and we're so much better than what it was. But I got mad yesterday. I was going so like on the family reunion site, I had posted something and I had like 500 people respond to it. I was yesterday going to go do a video down at Centennial Park and our soccer team was playing and traffic was a bear, so I didn't even get down there. But I was going to do videos saying, hey, when you're here, there's the Georgia Aquarium. It's world class. The Civil Rights Museum, World of Coke, National College Football Hall of Fame, all literally all within a block of each other, and then only a block away from the Congress Center, which is our convention center.
Wow.
So right there, I mean, and I'll be honest with you, those people that liked my post or made a comment, everything, I take a screenshot of every single one of them, and they're going to be added into my database. Is what they're going to do. And when we have like calls on Rainbow Network or anything that we have calls on that's like a call like this, I have to admit I will go back and I will look at who's on the call and I will write their names down and I will
Mhm.
go back and add them, start following them on Facebook and on Instagram, and hopefully they'll come back to me, also.
Well, and what all you're really doing is taking someone from like a first contact, a first touch, and just making sure that you have touch points added so that you don't lose that contact, right? Like you're not
Exactly.
gonna, you're not going to convert, someone on this call by having them hear you once. You are going to convert them from putting them on an email campaign, adding them as a friend on Facebook, and being really intentional about it. And so I think the message there continues to be like we have to be really intentional about the strategies and things that we're doing. Now, outside of a newsletter and adding people on social media, which is literally two things that we do as well, what else are you doing? Are you sending people like stuff? I mean, what are you doing?
I'm not above
I haven't ever
over
gotten anything
bribery.
and I'm a little upset, but it's okay.
That's okay. You're gonna start referring stuff to me in Atlanta, and you'll get crap.
That's
So
awesome.
no, I mean literally 30 minutes before we started this talk, I was emailing my assistant. What we do is like last week we got 7 agent to agent referrals coming in. Now, who knows what's going to come out of it, but they thought of us,
Mhm.
at all. And what we do is every Monday I will send to her the list and their email addresses, and we'll send out like a $20 Amazon gift card to them just to thank. And we didn't start that until a few months ago. It is amazing the amount of people that will text me back when they get it. It comes through email, but when
Mhm.
and it goes a little bit against me because I really would love to write a handwritten note, but with the mail service the way it is, it could be 2027 before it got there. But it is amazing the amount of notes I've gotten back. It does pay attention to it, and I didn't do it for a long time. And then when we do have a closing, when someone refers, then we send something else also. There is a agent out of Charlotte. Her name is Rhonda Westerfalt. We've done 3 or 4 deals together, and we're about to go into another one, about $2.5 million commercial deal. And every Christmas, she sends me a box of chocolates. They're not expensive chocolates. It's something reasonable because I know she's sending it to a bunch of people, but I remember her, most definitely with that. So, doing some stuff like that. What's interesting with Atlanta being as large a market, this is another part of it. So for those people who may be on here that are in Phoenix or Philadelphia or Houston or something, in the Atlanta, I'm sure you've heard Atlanta traffic is a bear and to deal with. Well, our northern agents, which is where in my group of offices that I belong with are, they don't necessarily want to come in town or go to the south side of Metro Atlanta. I've actually started sort of marketing to them to where we have between our 4 offices, including Savannah, we have a Facebook group. And if I get a deal done and I pay out a referral fee and it's among that group, I'll put on there saying, hey, I just paid Joe Smith $3,500 referral fee for his referral to someone in Sonoya, Georgia, which is on the south side of town. If you ever want to put extra money into your GCI, give me a shout. We're happy to help you in commercial and in-town residential and south residential. And there's a lot of metro areas, LA, San Francisco, such as that. You could do the same thing. We've actually last year we closed 5 deals like that.
Well, and just being, I think, in a collaborative mindset versus a competitive mindset most of the time,
Oh yeah,
right? Like
yeah.
it's more about thinking like what can relationships, even if they're like your competition, how can I actually collaborate with people? Now, there's all these things that like, we've already brought up, right? Like sending mailers, sending Popeyes, home, rather, newsletters, things like that, right? What, I mean, what do you think people should do that might be different? Do you think that like people should try to like do things that kind of fit their personality? Like where do you suggest people
Oh,
start?
most definitely. You got to know who you are. This is something that fits inside of mine. Is really weird when you take bold, everyone goes, you remember the old system of bold where everyone would freak out when you have to make cold calls, on
Oh, I
first
sat in
resident
my car
expires.
crying. Yeah.
Yeah. See, that does not faze me in the least bit. I will do that every day of the week. Flip the script around to the warm calls. That's when I go into the car and start crying, is because I don't like it. And I don't know if it's that I'm concerned or in fear of calling someone and there was something that I missed that made them mad in the transaction. They're going to blow out on me in there, but I'm much worse. I've really had to build, for lack of a better word, a prosthetic eye personality to get
Mhm.
past that, to do that. And so everyone's got their strengths. If now one thing that surprised me, and it changes over time, we like a lot of people, we do pies at Thanksgiving, but where people will come to the market center, let's say, and buy it, we'll go out and deliver the pie to their
Mm.
house. And what ends up happening is we have just as great a conversation, in doing it. I know that these people want to see me. If there are deeper relationships, and a great example is on one deal I sold for somebody, they were a member of a church, and we sold the church building less than 2 miles from my office. I now have a 130 acre land listing from them also because I've developed because I bring a pie to them every Thanksgiving, you
Right.
know,
And I
to
think
do that.
what you're saying is just like thinking a little bit like outside of what is quote unquote normal, right? Like it's like, okay,
Yeah,
yes, I could do the thing where like people show up at the office, or I could do it a little different, right? And actually drop it off. Like for me, instead of sending people a holiday card that are my agent referrals, instead I put together a 3-day event and invite you all to attend it.
there you go. There
Literally
you
a
go.
thing. So, you know,
I
it's
mean,
just different.
yeah, I mean, everyone does, something different. I mean, I can tell you, and hopefully, I think I saw Jeff Morbido on here, and I'm not giving out a secret, is that there's about 5 or 6 of us who are planning in when you guys come to Atlanta, we're going to have a private party for y'all, to do that.
Yeah.
So, we're trying to, we're trying to think of different ways to encapsulate. The biggest thing and I'm going to use probably Gary Keller's overused term, real estate is a contact sport. You can't hide in your house and do it. And whatever, I will tell people all this time, the bones of real estate are basically the same. The bone structures of a real estate transaction and marketing, everything. The skin of it may be different. Just build your own Frankenstein. I think I've even heard you say that before. And I think that sometimes when I've coached people in our market center before, that jostles them a little bit out of the head, going like, okay, I can be creative, in how I do this. I mean, my work wife here, she can be on the phone all freaking day talking to people, and she is perfectly happy, and she has her sphere, and and stuff like that. I lean a little bit more over that introvert personality where it's a mixture of everything that,
Yeah.
that I can do. And it's just really turned into a great thing. Now, the reality though is with agent to agent referrals is that you have to bring what I call the backup to it. When you have to prove that you can make a deal happen, that you are going to service their client as well as you would service, your own origination client, to do that. And when I talk to other agents, I happily tell them, it's like, I can give you other, you know how we say, oh, we can give you a reference, like a home buyer. I'll say, "I'll give you other agents I've referred with, to talk to. I'm happy to do that.
Yeah.
And that seems to be pretty successful also.
Well, and I mean, not to I call it out, but I mean, you're in a fairly competitive market when it comes to referrals for agents. I mean,
Oh,
especially gay ones.
yeah, and I mean
Yeah.
in the Rainbow Network, someone told me a couple of years ago that Atlanta has the highest concentration of members in the Rainbow Network.
Oh, yeah.
Now, now where the difference is, and I may be saying something out of turn here, is that when we started putting together, I'll be okay. When I
Exclusive.
started, yeah, when I started putting together, hey, I want to do this party thing. I want to bring in some other people. Be, like you said, collaborative. I really looked at people who were very active, or what I felt were a truly an active part of the Rainbow Network.
Mhm.
Is what I looked at.
Yeah.
So, like in any city, it's that 80-20 rule.
Mhm.
You've got people such as Jeff, Dallas, and such as that, who truly engage themselves into the business, and they should be commended for that. In doing that. So we're all going to, and a couple of other people, we're going to come together. Atlanta is just, yeah, we're a city where we just have a freaking load of realtors. There's no
Yeah.
question about it.
Well, and especially gay ones. It is
Oh yeah,
like the
yeah,
mecca.
yeah.
I
I
call it
mean,
the gay mecca of the South is what I call it.
I mean, it really is. And I live in the middle of the hood, for what we have for a hood and stuff like that. And it's just, it's, what is it, on St. Patrick's Day? I went to a party and there were three other realtors there, were there. Now, the ironic part of it, the party was at my friend's place who I have listed. So they came into enemy territory.
Well, you
Um,
said something with that 80-20 rule, right? Like I think you're having that confidence that you're like, hey, like first of all, I know what I'm doing. I'm doing at a higher level than most. I already understand that 80% of the people that are my competition are not doing the top 20% of the business like I am, right? 80% are not producing. So you're having a little bit of like also not being so attached to the outcome on the situation and feeling like you can, you just go in and you just do your thing and the rest will take care of itself, right?
It very much is that way. And trust me, it took me years to get to that point. My there was they weren't with Keller, they were with Remax, but it was a good friend of mine. He just came to a point, it's like, have faith, it'll work out. It'll work. If you get up every morning and you spread your capabilities of what you can do in lead generation into five top things. Don't try to do 10 or 20. Figure out what's your lanes, in doing, then, and you have enough going into your pipeline, you're going to be okay. Now, what I do, well, let me back up. One of our OPs, what she says is, on her team, she ran a very big team. And she said she would always want to see that there were 25 pieces of business coming in per month. And then it shakes out from there of what actually occurs, whatever format it comes from. So I've been looking at that a lot. But the other part of it is that I keep, we have opportunity in command, which we do run that, but I keep just old fashioned Excel spreadsheet or Google Drive spreadsheet of what I've got going on and everything of that sort. And about twice a month, I will go through there. And what I have on there is, like, I have where it's coming from. It was a referral agent, the name of the client, the sales volume, the potential commission. And for us, whether it was residential, commercial, buyer or seller. But I'll go through that potential commission. And if I can see that I'm at a certain number out in my head, I stay calm because it'll
Mm.
flush itself through. I know good and well not everything is going to work, but if I hit a certain number, then I know the world will be okay. It may be a little bit slower for this month, or maybe slow for a 2 week period, but we all know, plan a trip, which, I'm going at the end of next week. Next week is going to be hell on wheels, with everyone, coming through. But that has created, I will fully admit, that has created a good amount of mental peace for
Mm.
myself.
So just obviously staying on track of what your business is, where things are coming in at, et cetera. Did you find that like last year when it came to business referrals that it was harder, or did you find like because the market for real estate specifically has shifted, right? And every industry will have some type of shift in how
Mhm.
business comes. Did you find that last year for at least for the real estate industry that referrals were harder to get, or did you find that you were fine?
I think for us, we were fine in what came in. What did happen though is that we had more problems with people with the client actually following through, if that
Mm,
makes sense.
it does.
We had a lot more of them dying out that, where you would normally in the residential side of the business, you would normally look at, let's say 70, if you get that conversation going, there's a 75% chance you're going to close it. That number went way down,
I would
on
agree. Yeah.
that, in that regard. So that was a bit concerning, to see that. But the other thing that did occur, I think, was a good amount, was that I'm losing my train of thought here, is that more and more people are learning about Facebook and such as that. So especially when you're in a concentrated market like Atlanta, those are harder to get, and you just you can't troll Facebook all day long. It's just impossible to do that. So that's where I started expanding out. Okay, let's start teaching some classes in markets that I know come into Atlanta, and then throw a weekend in Pensacola, or in St. Petersburg or something, with it. Let's make sure that we go to networking events, both inside Atlanta and nationally to, Vegas or Mega Camp or whatever the case may be, so that you have multiple, same way you want business to coming in from multiple streams, you want those leads in that world coming in from multiple streams also.
Well, I
So,
mean, and we kind of felt the same thing on our team because we're high agent referral as well, just because of my networking that I did early on. And we felt like we were still getting the amount of leads, but like you said, the amount that were following through, the ones who actually closed were a lot higher. We ran into that as well. And what we kind of did is similar to you, right? Where I started training and going out and grabbing more people. And so sometimes, like I will say, like when you're in the kind of direction in your business where you're going to focus on business to business referrals, it always is a quantity game. It's going to
oh,
be
it
a,
is.
yeah.
Yeah, it's always going to be that way. It's going back to consistency. It's getting, one of the things that probably, it doesn't frustrate me because I've just got to stay in my lane and let them be them, and all I can do is take care of myself. Is that I don't think that realtors truly look at their, what they call their business, quote unquote, truly as a business, as a practice. It can't be, if you were a Ford Motor Company and you had cars coming down the line, you can't just decide on a Tuesday afternoon, okay, screw it, I'm not gonna be there. You've got to be there to put the cars together. It's the same thing with work. Please understand, I'm not saying not to take time off of work. That is very important. It's important to educate, those things. But you've got to look at it. It's Monday, I'm working, there's my schedule for the week, to do that. And if once you get that consistency in gear, you're going to be okay, to do that.
Well, and our team talks about, well, I say this all the time, if you erase, you must replace, right? So like
Yep.
if we have our 1 hour or 2 hour in the morning that is dedicated to conversations and that doesn't happen, it needs to just be put somewhere else, right? So it's just being really, I think it's being about what you're saying is being persistent enough in your goals that you do it, which is wild to think we have to.
Yeah, I mean, you just do it. I mean, I'm a little bit unusual in that I have never had a boss. I ever since, due to unusual circumstances, at 22, just having graduated from college, I was running three companies, and it wasn't my game plan whatsoever. I actually had a job in New Orleans, and unfortunately, I couldn't go to it, and I had to stay in Atlanta for family reasons. But anyhow, I've just never known any different than me depending on myself. Is I've never been guaranteed that paycheck, coming in. And so it's just very ingrained into me. And sometimes it's been more stressful than others. I mean, as entrepreneurship will be. But I'm also very grateful for those times when I do want to take off that I can, or if I have a son with special needs. If there's something that he needs, I can do it. I will make up for it on the other side. And then I'm very, very fortunate to have, like you do, a really awesome support team in place that you can take those times off to be able to do it. But they know good and well, as your team knows for yourself, that I'm going to work as hard or harder than them to do that. You can't ask people, is my personal opinion, you can't ask people to work harder than you are and expect them to do everything. You've got to be, when you're running a team, you've got to be the example,
Well,
of doing it.
and that is such a good point. I mean, my admin staff will tell you that the one that's not my husband will tell you it'll be like, I mean, even my husband probably will tell you it's like 8:30 or 9 o'clock on a Tuesday, and I'm like I've gotten better about not sending the text because I know that not everyone needs to work after 5 p.m. But I started now scheduling texts because I work at night. You know what I mean? Like I
Oh,
work the whole day.
no, I get it. Last night my partner was packing to go to, he's in San Jose today. And while he was doing that, I was writing all these emails and then putting schedule for 8 a.m. delivery this morning. And it
hmm
actually made my life, and I've only been doing it for a few weeks now. I'll be honest with you, I slept better last night, not having to think about it and having it done. And I dived right into being able to work on that newsletter this morning. And
Yeah.
then everyone can answer me back, when they needed to. So it's sometimes a hard thing to do. My partner's got a very high demand job also. He's in charge of global accounts and things like that. So he's on a call like at 10:30 at night to India or something like that. So we understand that, but you've got to take those times, for that. And you have to use technology where you can, talk to people, shoot a text, everything of that sort. I will tell you one of the best things, and I don't know if you're the one who said it, but talking about
Probably
agent to
did.
agent
Yeah.
referrals, yeah, we'll give you credit. It's like on birthdays and stuff,
Yeah.
is don't just send them a text, do a video, you
Yeah.
know, to it. It is amazing the reactions that people get, because there's a lot of people. I'm very, very, very fortunate in my life where I'm at, where I've got people who, care about me. But one doesn't always know what somebody else's story is. That thing could make their whole birthday, you
Yeah.
know.
For my very special people, I actually send the Memoji, like the little animals that are in the
Yeah.
bowl. I have a unicorn, and someone on this call actually has gotten my Charlie the unicorn text for their birthday. But it's like I do this funny voice, and I send them like a video of this unicorn talking for their birthday, and
Yeah. I mean,
this is what we talk
and
about when we say make things yours, you know?
Yeah, I mean, and there's not these gigantic, huge gestures. It's just the consistency of gestures, that are like that makes a big difference. I mean, like the lady I was talking about in Charlotte. I mean, when we do this deal this year, that'll be our fifth transaction that we've done together.
Mm.
Inside of Georgia Legacy Group, there's some people I've done. There's one lady who has sent me enough business to where I've paid her $70,000 in referrals fees,
Mm.
on stuff. So,
Definitely be getting a unicorn birthday message from me.
yeah, I mean, it's just awesome to see it grow where it is. And I look at agent to agent referrals as a very important part of my business of lead generation. It is a whole other thing. And then within our ownership group, I look at those 15 or 1900 in Georgia Legacy Group, they're clients, for our commercial side. But the other people, be it in Phoenix, LA, Dallas, like Kim Davis in Dallas, something like that. I look at her as a potential other, client, to hopefully get business from one day, in doing it. And it gives some good peace of mind. It's just another way to do it, because I don't hyper local market like a lot of people, do. That's just because when I got it, to be honest with you, when I got into the business, I was in the middle of getting divorced. I could have moved to Houston, Texas, and started with the same amount of people in the database. So I really, even though I was a native Atlantan, I was really starting from ground zero to build it, to where I
Totally
was.
get that. Yeah, I mean, I
So
totally get that. I was 23 when I started and had a database at 500, and so sometimes it's a conversation of like it's not about we let ourselves have limiting beliefs, but I think when we focus on having communications and making just good, genuine connections with people, the rest takes care of itself. And as Joe mentioned in the comments, I'm now 24. At least my esthetician tells me I am. So,
there you go. There you go.
thank you.
Yeah, and you just brought up a very big thing, and I know it doesn't have to do with agent data referrals, but someone on my team, they for many years had limiting beliefs. If
Mm.
you can blow and put those limiting beliefs in a box and shove it into a drawer or something, he finally did that. I was gonna say into the closet, but no. But when you can put them away, it's amazing what you can do because he finally were able to break through that. And last year he did 100% increase in his GCI and made the most money he's ever made in 30 years of working last
Mm.
year. And he's on track to even do better this year. So
Our
um
minds are powerful things. They can either propel us forward or they can hold us back tremendously, right?
oh yeah, it can be a chain on you. There's I mean, I have to admit I'm the sort of the same way. Once I stop, it's almost like you're fighting with yourself.
Yeah.
And while going out and doing classes and getting agent data referrals is not, as opposed to you, my most natural thing to go do, the gifts or the advantages or whatever you want to call for it have so far outweighed the pain of doing it that is an integral part of who we are now in doing that. So we've just been very fortunate.
I love it. Thanks for listening today, friends. If you enjoyed this call, do not forget to join Queer and Successful, the community on Facebook, as well as register to participate in these calls live every Monday at 4 p.m. Eastern at successfulcall.com. See you next time. Bye.